Well, for YouTube, whoever doesn't know that watches this recording, we are the Flow Party. We are a community of developers and designers using low-code tools. And today we have the amazing Joseph Berry here. We're going to be talking about feedback, how he takes it, how he gives it. So Joseph, introduce yourself.
Hello all, hope you're well. I love it when you make me introduce myself. It feels so...
Well, I mean, people are going to watch it and like, you never know. Not everybody knows who Joseph Berry is.
It's me. Yes, it's Joseph Berry. Thanks for inviting me. And as Melissa said, we're going to have a little discussion, pretty open discussion, to be honest. Just note, I had a really bad migraine this morning, so I've been in bed most of the day. But I've actually pulled through and I'm feeling a lot better than I was this morning. So as Melissa said, we're just going to have a bit of a chat. I'm going to kind of go through some of my past and some of the situations that I went through and some of the things that I had to deal with giving and getting feedback. And hopefully there's some things in there that can help you understand. And then I think later on we can kind of discuss how to approach feedback and the best way to push back on feedback that you don't think's right, and some little tips and techniques that you can try and use that could hopefully help you, and generally just making you feel better about feedback in general, because it's something that I think as all creatives, designers, we hate at times, and sometimes it's super difficult to take, and there's so many different factors that we need to understand and try and take into consideration of how we deal with that and how we respond to it. I know most of the time we just want to punch our fist through the screen, but there's definitely easier and better ways to deal with it. So hopefully, we can go over a few things to help with that.
Yeah. I think who has a dog barking? Diego, it's you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, let me mute myself. There's always a dog barking here at home.
Same. I think the reason for this chat is because we were actually talking about that, Joseph and I. Like, it's so hard to get feedback, and once you get it, you kind of get stuck. Like, you don't know where to start. So I think seeing it from his point of view, it's going to be super useful for people here. So it's 3:05, so I think we can start right away.
Cool. Sweet.
People will just start coming in.
So I think the first thing that I think would be good to kind of talk about is a little bit about my experience. As some of you probably know, I spent over a decade working inside a lot of different types of agencies, small, medium, and really large. And you meet a lot of interesting people, and you obviously get feedback from a lot of different type of people. And I think that is partly how it's kind of shaped my character, maybe the way that I present myself. Melissa said that I do come across a little bit scary at times, and hopefully this conversation will make you understand how I break this down, and you can get a little bit more understanding of me and why I might be a certain way with how I work and the way that I think and the way that I do things. So I think if we go back from right to the beginning, and this is when I first got a first job. So I obviously went to university. I spent nearly 2 years trying to get a job. It was so difficult back then. This was obviously when we was at a transition period between print and digital. Digital was really starting to move forward. And my first initially wanted to go into print. I was a graphic designer by a kind of trade in university. So anyway, I spent nearly 2 years getting a job, and I finally got my first job, which was at a woman's fashion brand called Coast. They're still around. You can type them in. They're called Coast Fashion. They do like maxi dresses. They do like kind of really high-end garments. And yeah, obviously, as you can imagine, me being a guy going into a woman's brand, it was obviously, it was an interesting environment to go into my first job. But why I wanted to highlight this was just the start of what I got introduced to. It was a very small team. It was me, someone that was above me, and a product owner, which was the owner of the website, that would help organize photo shoots, help organize like when we had to see it in emails out, updates for the websites. And I was obviously just doing, very general basic things like designing email templates, updating banners for websites, just general helping out with some, just general tasks. So nothing really involved, but it stood out to me the most because my first introduction was having a really terrible boss. And I used to get really, really horrible feedback from my boss. I don't think she'd really managed anyone before. And obviously me being a junior, I wasn't up to speed as expected. But some of that first initial interactions of the feedback that I was getting was really hurtful, like really, really hurtful. And again, depending on the number of people in this group, where you are in your career, what level you're at, even to this day now, I still get a little bit upset with certain types of feedback, but that just shows you. So yeah, starting off, it was really horrible, to be honest. Like, it was really, really horrible. I had a really shit manager that was just not really understanding, not really helping me. I would admit that I was probably I was forgetting lots of things. I wasn't doing things correctly. And I understand that it took me a long time to really kind of grasp that. And it was so bad that I wanted to quit. That's how bad it got. I was like, my feelings were just completely destroyed. So from that first initial job, I was already chucked into a really hostile kind of communication with people that I was working with. So I was like, whoa, I didn't realize how strong this could be. And it didn't set a good precedent for my first job and what I was going to be expecting. So that kind of was the first initial point. And I think it's really important because that was the first interaction that I ever had working in any agency or company. And I was just being grilled and not really looked after and not really nurtured and grown. And I think it set me on the back foot. Going on a couple more years later, I went into another agency and I had another creative director, and really, really talented creative director, but another really difficult person to work with. I'm sure we've all had clients like this, where they're constantly changing their mind, where 1 minute they say do this, and then you give them this, and then they actually change that. And it was just a constant cycle of going backwards and forwards, round and round, and also having to deal with someone that was very particular and only wanted something the way that they wanted. And again, with the way that I see it as creative, we should allow creatives to have their own interpretation on things. So having to deal with someone that was that controlling, as well as couldn't really make a decision, again showed me another side of how tricky it can be. Then we have other factors that come into play. This is when I started interacting with more clients and actually doing presentations. And this is actually face-to-face presentations, big room of 5, 6, 7 people. It could be a CEO, it could be a CFO, it could be another design lead, and that in itself is really intimidating to even just get in that room and potentially even talk about your work. And then you've got other people that are coming in, and you have to start understanding the different types of feedback that you're getting, who's giving you the feedback, and how do you actually take all of this feedback in at once? Because I always look at it from my perspective is who's actually giving the feedback and what they're saying. Does it actually make sense? And I remember this one time we was in this was in this presentation, and the guy just clear out went, I hate it. He went, I literally just hate it, what we presented. And we was like, well, why? And he just said, I can't give you an answer, but I hate it, and you're going to have to start again. And like, you could imagine how soul destroying that actually might be when you put all your time and effort into something and you can't even get any clear feedback. So I just think there's some really interesting stories that I had kind of had to go through. And then as time went on, I started to understand, and I said this to Melissa, is opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got them. Everyone's got one. And this is what you're going to have to understand, especially in the design spectrum, is you don't have to be a designer to be able to give feedback or get feedback. And that's the challenging thing when you're coming up against someone that's not really design background, they don't really understand, and they're probably making them wide sweeping feedback comments that we've all had. Make logo bigger, space is too big, you know, these very typical ones that we always get. And, you know, they don't understand some of the fundamentals and practice that go into it. And again, you have to take the bits that make sense to you and then try and action them in the best possible way. So, yeah, hopefully that's just an initial little point. Melissa, I don't know if you have any little comments that you can interject there and ask things that might be able to help, just elaborate on some of them points.
No, I mean, I think let's jump into...
Is there any questions from anyone in the group? It'd be good to see if anyone's come across any of these kind of situations before.
Well, somebody comes, I actually definitely been in that situation. Like, I've worked in places where, actually with a client not long ago, I told you about it. I showed them the design and they were like, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. So I remember at that moment, I was just, first of all, super in shock, because obviously, you know, you're the one that does the design, so it's your style. And I remember that in my head, I was just thinking, okay, how can I turn this around? Because obviously your first thought is just run away, or that was my thought, run away and, like, you know, give them the money back.
Just leave me alone, cut and run.
Yeah. And I was able to turn it away. And I feel like it was because you kind of have to put yourselves in the client's shoes and walk through the process. Okay, what is it that you want? Point out what is it that you don't like. Thankfully, they were open to go through that process. I'm sure there's people that won't, like that boss you had. So would love to hear the rest.
Yeah, and like the key be telling them the initial stories, just to understand that in the agency environment, you know, it's not always fluffy. You know, everyone doesn't give feedback the way that you want it. You know, it's not always delivered with, you know, softness and care. And the key point of them stories is the biggest thing that we all have is really we need to forget about our feelings, because that's the biggest thing that we attach to a design. And when we get feedback is our feelings come into play. And that's when we ultimately get quite emotional and we get a bit defensive about things. So I learned very quickly, fuck your emotion, forget about your emotion, just try and focus on the feedback and the feedback given. And there's some key things that I would always try and look at when feedback is given. For me, it's always about, does the feedback actually make sense? Does it make sense to the design principles that you put in place? Does it work? Does it actually make sense? Do you think that would work? You know, oh, could we try this? You know, when you're designing things out, you can think in your head, does that work? Does that not? And again, there's some techniques that you can do there to try and iron that out. One might be, well, the go-to one for that would be, oh, I want to see it like this. You know it won't work. Now, instead of pushing back on that, the best thing that I do is actually just do it. Just do that, what they've suggested, and show your preferred suggestion to the side, and then explain to them why their suggestion doesn't work and why yours does. And having that reference point between the two is really going to help push back on that in a better way, rather than saying no and trying to explain it, because through words it's very difficult sometimes to explain why something doesn't work. And sometimes it's about just showing the client and just saying, look, this doesn't work and this is why it doesn't work. And as you can see here, this is not working, that's not working. And then you've got more ammunition to really show them. And also that starts to build up this trust thing. You know, some clients you get, they just trust you. You know, you say, I don't think this is right. Okay, cool. Boom, it's gone. You don't even have to battle. But you get some clients that they're always trying to second guess everything that you're doing. I mean, they're typically the clients that you don't want to try and take, because they're not letting you do your job and they're trying to do the job for you. And you really want to, in that process of trying to weed these people out, but it's very difficult sometimes too. So that little process there is a really good technique that I try and use if there is a suggestion that has been made and I don't think it's right. Instead of just saying, oh, I don't really think this is right, X, Y, and Z, they don't get it. They still want to see it. They might be adamant that they want to see it. Well, show them, and then you can at least have a better argument of potentially winning that case. As the fallback to that, and again, this comes down to your feelings and thinking about the job in hand. Sometimes you got to pick and choose the battles, and sometimes you just got to concede and think, okay, cool, fine, that's it. I'll move on. I'll make the best out of a bad situation and just try and move forward in the best possible way. But if you've got clients like that, then ultimately the project's never really going to get to its full potential, because it's always going to be, you feel like you've got something that you're like, yeah, this is really good. We've all been there. And then they start just pulling away. And before you know it, you've got something that you're like, I really don't like this anymore. And you're kind of in that situation where you've lost your excitement, and then you need to change your strategy, which is, I just need to get the job done now. You need to forget about all of them emotions and feelings again and just drive through. So yeah, trying to think about the type of feedback, where it's coming from, who it's coming from. Remember, there's going to be, as I said before, lots of different people. You might have a project manager trying to give you feedback. You might even have, someone else that's not even related trying to give you feedback, or you've got SEO coming in, you've got a UXer, you've got this. So there's all different types of feedback that you need to try and analyze in the best way. And again, it's a kind of a case by case of listening to the feedback that is actually worth listening to. And this kind of channels into the next part of that about, the feelings is one bit, but then actually the really good bit about feedback, and this is depending who you're working with, and this goes on to a later part where I worked with a fantastic creative director, best person I've ever worked with in my life. His ego was huge, massive. He was like a prima donna, and his shit didn't stink. He knew he was like top, but he actually backed it up like seriously in so many different levels when he was presenting his work, the way that he was talking about his work. And obviously I'm quite a big character myself. And at the first instance of us meeting, it was almost like a bullfight, because there was two, big characters coming together. And I'm thinking about all my experience, all my ego, all the things that I've learned. And then I've got someone that's super strong. But what I actually did is I took my emotion completely out of everything that he was saying, because when I started listening to the feedback, I started realizing how actionable this feedback was. And this is why taking feedback and getting good feedback from good people is so, so valuable. Because if you let your feelings and emotions get in the way of good feedback, you are actually hindering progression to yourself. And this is why good feedback is great for you to develop, because you're going to get things that you might not have thought about. And an example that I will give is me and Melissa have been working on some work together on a project, and I've been giving her some feedback on some stuff, and I went through like quite a few things, and there was just one thing after the other. I didn't think about that. That's really great. This is really good. And it's all actionable stuff. So it goes back to that point when you're getting that feedback is just take away that motion, think about the feedback. Does it make sense? Yeah, that actually really makes sense. That's I didn't think about that. That's really good. That's another version that I could do, or that's something else that I could do, or I could remember that for something for next time. And then you don't like, first instances with feedback is you kind of want to like, oh no, I don't like that, no, I don't want to do that, don't want to do this, and you're pushing it off. You need to kind of take it in, look at what's valuable, look at what you think maybe I could question it. And this is what I started to do with him. I just dropped everything that I was expecting to do, and I just let him give me all of this information. And I was just taking this feedback, and this feedback was so particular, but it was so particular but so good. And it changed me from being an average good designer to a really good designer. And I'm so serious about the level of change that happened over 2 years of working with one person, because by the end of it, a year down the road, I was on his level. I was doing this. I was coming to him with ideas, and he was like, "This is it. You finally started to crack that," because he was giving me this feedback that was totally actionable and just made me such a better designer. And that's, that's where you need to learn of that balance between what's good feedback, what's bad feedback, what's good feedback that actually can make you progress and understand, good practices, little techniques. I showed Melissa some really cool techniques. I showed her some good design thinking, showed the way to look at different elements. And these are all things that when we, again, as we progress through these pages, Melissa will say, hopefully herself, that she got better as she went on because she was already putting everything that I was saying into practice. I mean, Melissa, do you agree with what I've said there? Oh, Melissa? It's gone quiet. No one there? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Yeah, sorry. Did you get what I said?
That of course that it did really help me. And I told you this, and I even told Ty, like, the way I have grown in the past few months, it's just been so insane because it's feedback that I can actually understand and action upon. When you tell someone like that just doesn't look right, that's just feedback that's so broad. But when you really explain and it's like that thing that you say about the basics, you really have to understand that to be able to break it, like you always say. So yeah, definitely for me has been awesome.
Skylar was like, I look like a Bricktop. They go through bone like butter. That's good. But yeah, it's a challenge. And Nelson put a really good comment, like, junior level, your emotions get in the way. Totally correct. It's totally senior. Yeah, they still do a little bit, but you're more well equipped to take it or leave it, or have an articulated response back. And that's just going to come with time. But for anyone that's a junior, try and forget about your emotions. As I said, just think about the feedback, take the bits that make sense, be open to it. It's going to be annoying sometimes. You're going to have people that are going to say, do this, do that, do this, change this. And it's going to be a bombardment, and it will get to you. It obviously will. But each time you go through that pain barriers, you'll just get better and better at it. And then it's just a company of, looking at the types of feedback and how that works. So hopefully them little pointers in there can give you, and I'm sure a lot of you already kind of go through this, and you've obviously all witnessed this kind of things. I myself, as I said, I still get frustrated with feedback that I get. Depending on that feedback, again, does it make sense? That's the question that I always ask myself when I get feedback. Does it make sense? Is there logic to that feedback? Does that work with what we're doing? Or is this just a complete and utter kind of random piece of feedback like we get, which is, oh, I don't like this, and or this doesn't work, and there's no substance to that, then you need to interrogate that and say, well, why? What do you want? And try and find the balance. I think someone's got their speaker on. And try and find some balance in that. I think trying to think of some other things that I think might be useful to speak about is what is the best way of pushing back on feedback. And again, I'm going to use another example with me and Melissa with the project that we were working on. The client went through, gave some feedback, and there was this like bit of feedback about, oh, like just there was so for instance, just picture this is a kind of lock-up card, and at the bottom here there's another kind of lock-up inside, which holds a title, some information, and when you hover, it shows some other information inside of this card. And the feedback was move the title to the top of the card, which was like, so I was like, no, this is not right. And Melissa was like, how would we push back on that? And I just broke it down in kind of some simple logic, and thinking about that again, thinking it needs to be, you need to think about that, go back to them basics and think about your UX, UI, and then use that to be able to articulate a really good response. So moving the title up to the top corner. So what would the first thing be? Bearing in mind the title is would be on top of an image. So my first pushback would be, well, depending on the type of image that is being used, we may have some accessibility issues with the text just sitting over the top of the image. Now, we would have to potentially bring in a pill shape, and that might not necessarily look so nice. The other really important thing is the lockup at the bottom is central to keeping all of that information in one nice space. Again, thinking about the user's eye pattern, they've got to look up, to look down, to then see all of that information. You've just broke that really nice pattern of keeping everything contained in that nice space. And then I think there was one final bit of feedback. No, I think that was it. I think it was accessibility. I think it was about having to change the visual hierarchy of where the user would have to look. And then it was about breaking the containment of that lockup and keeping all of them elements in a nice space. And we sent that over, and they were like, "Yeah, fine, cool." And they didn't even come back with anything. So that's why when it goes back to that first thing about when you get that feedback, understanding it, and then try and articulate, if you're going to push back, the best response that you can to that has logic behind it. Because when you have feedback that has no logic and you put pushback with logic, what's going to win? I mean, if they're a decent client, logic should always win over no logic. So that's, again, another way that I would try and approach when you push back on that feedback. Going back to that point that I mentioned earlier, again, thinking about when you're presenting options to clients and thinking about what you're showing to the client. I used to be very linear, like I'd only show like one thing or one variation, and I would do most of it all there. And what I would really try and do, I mean, now I still kind of do it because I'm probably more efficient. I understand the things that work. I understand the things that don't work. But when you're in that stage before, explore, push, try things that don't even make sense, and just try other things. And again, I was getting Melissa to break out and try other little things. But for instance, you don't need to create 3 different whole versions of the same page. For instance, maybe when you get down to one section and you've got one card lockup, okay, maybe we could just break out to the side and show another variation or show another variation. And again, you can give that offering up. You show your recommended variation and then you show some other options on the side. Again, what this also does is it can also help avoid feedback, because you could potentially offer up a solution that they might be more interested in. Rather, if you just show them one thing, then they've got opportunity to kind of nitpick it. So it's about finding the right times where you can break out and try a variation. You don't have to do it on everything, but I think sometimes it's nice to offer up them variations. Also, it's a great opportunity for you to explore a little bit more, rather than maybe working so like, you know, blinker vision and just driving into one thing. I know that's very difficult to break out, and I would definitely try and break out in areas where you can. And again, this is something that we did with Melissa as she was showing me things. I would go, why don't you try this? She went away, she tried it, she come back, oh yeah, this looks great, it works really well. You know, and again, going through that process of that, it is really helpful as well. And it again can help you build up that understanding. It is really all about understanding. When you get the better knowledge to understand how to combat these kind of situations. And I will have a little pause there because I know I rambled on a bit.
Another thing was, for example, like when a client is in love with an idea, they want you to try it, which is what happened to us on the Hero. Like that side nav, or not nav, what was it, like the scroll bar?
Right, yeah. And then that situation came about, didn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, another good example. I'm going to use all of these examples because they're really recent and they're all really relevant for this conversation. And ultimately, that's why this conversation started. And we'll go back to a little bit of why Melissa thought I was a bit of a tough cookie to start with. But the client saw something that had been done by Tyler, actually, and they were like, oh, we want this side nav. And at first I was like, I'm not really sure about it, but you know, I just went with it. And we did the side nav, and then as we was designing, I started thinking, oh, there's loads of problems with this, because the side nav was like a ghost side nav, and it was on a background image. So it started off white, and then the page went into white, right? Then we had to like shift all of the elements that were in the center of the Hero slightly over to compensate, because the visual space taken up by that side nav had now created a new kind of vertical space inside. So we had to realign that. Now that made like that top bit kind of look to the side, and then we had the page that came down, and then the page was like more central. So you had this alignment issue. And again, this was why it was good just to do it, because it actually changed after. But then as we scroll down, we go into a white page. So now we've got this dilemma. We've got the side nav's going to be going across elements on the page, and it could actually interfere with lots of different elements. So as I started to show this to Melissa, I was like, well, what happens when we scroll down? Well, one, we've got to either bring in a bar at the side to come over it, or we've got to change the colors, a scroll interaction. Then we've got to think about all these elements that could potentially be in like overlapped by this, which we'd have to shift the grid. And it was just causing too many problems. But we left it there, and actually once the client saw it and Melissa gave some suggestions to why we might want to change it, they saw it again straight away, and it was okay. We'll go back to the traditional nav that sits across the top. And again, back to that point, as I said, showing that and just kind of going with it. Sometimes we didn't really necessarily think about it, but it happened when it came. And that's sometimes when you do action that feedback, that's how you can then get the ammunition to push back, because you actually started to do it, and then you can see where the problems are arising. So again, it's going through that battle of do I action this or try to action it, or do I see if I try to action it, and then problems might arise, and then you've got something to go back with. So it kind of happened by accident, but sometimes that's how it happens, and you know there's no problem with that either. So yeah, that was another really cool story. And then back to the point with Melissa, and it was the first time that I gave feedback. I was, again, from how we give feedback in agencies, we're not like, oh, this is really cool, and you just change this, and it's fast paced. As I said, you're dealing with some tough nuts in the environment. Like, no one's sugarcoating this shit. Like this is not right. This is out of line. This needs to come. Move your spacing. Get rid of that cap. Do this. Da da da. And it's like this. Yeah, it's not very. Sometimes not very friendly in that sense. Well, it doesn't feel so friendly in that sense. But you've got to think when you're in that environment. We're not really here to waste time, and we're here to get shit done. That's kind of one of my other mottos: get shit done. So I was a bit like, and I think Melissa felt a bit bamboozled after the first review, where I would just kind of, I didn't tear it apart, because what she did was actually really good. It was just a lot of them small things that a lot of people that are slightly junior or in the mid might not see, and it's one of them things. It's your feelings come into play when someone's like, "Oh, that's not a line," and you're like, "Yeah, it is," and then you look at it and you're like, "No, it's not," or the spacing's out, or you haven't looked at your alignment, or there's just loads of other little things that that you don't notice, but then when someone calls it out, it kind of feels a bit like you feel a bit disheartened, and I think, yeah. I mean, you can speak for yourself, Melissa. I don't know. You said, "Oh, you're."
I mean, you already threw me apart here on live. No, I'm kidding.
What's that?
You tore me apart live, but it's fine.
Well, yeah. I mean, no, it didn't really. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, look. When I gave that feedback at first, the feelings were in play, but then when I started to explain and I went into more detail, you was like, "Oh yeah, all right, okay."
Yeah.
And then it started to progress and change for you, because you actually really started to understand it. What I did at first was just a general over, like da 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 da, and then I went back through, and no, I'm not trying to fix it, Diego.
No, I think that it's important, the type of feedback that you get, like what you mentioned earlier. You can't just tell someone, you just have to fix that. Okay, but like, what is that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not seeing what you're seeing, and it's what you were saying earlier. As you get more experience, you start noticing those things,
Yeah.
And as a person giving feedback, it's important to mention those things as you start working with people, because you kind of mold into that way of work. Obviously, in an agency, the first time you work together, they're not just going to throw feedback like if you've been working together for 5 years. You already have like a dynamic of how.
Yeah, you understand people, and that relationship grows.
Exactly.
It grows, but that's potentially why my kind of demeanor, and Melissa kept saying, "Oh, people are quite intimidated of you," and I get that, but what I would say to everyone in this room is, don't intimidate of me. Maybe over these conversations, or the way that I talk about my work, is because I'm very passionate about what I do, and I believe in what I do, and I have a conviction in the way that I talk about the stuff that I do. But if you're with me face to face, you'll see how much of a silly kind of guy that I am. But just in my working environment, I maybe take things a little bit seriously sometimes. But that all comes down to being passionate about what you want to do, I guess. And if you want to become better, you need to be passionate. You need to be driven. As I said, when you're working with different types of people, you're gonna deal with dicks. I know I can be a dick sometimes. I know, like you're gonna meet dicks. You're gonna meet all types of dicks, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. And as I said at the beginning, get rid of your feelings. Don't worry about it, and just keep pushing on. Keep driving through that. And there's always something to learn from all of these situations and all of these interactions. And it's just making you better at receiving feedback, trying to give feedback, and breaking it down in the best possible way to make you a better designer, developer, and whatever you want to do in life, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So remember that tweet you had not long ago, a couple of days ago or something, saying that school wasn't useful?
So yeah, this actually kind of let's have a little. Let's try and get some interaction from the group.
Okay, guys, so unmute yourselves.
So how many of you have done college or university for any field that you're in? It could be just a hands up or a wave. There's a react thing here. How many? Right, so we've got 1, 2, no, 3, 4, 5. So there's quite okay. So there's quite a few of you in here that are actually either done uni or in uni or college. Great. Okay, and just no. Okay. So that's just to kind of get a gauge. And my tweet was that, do you need a degree in today's age to become, like a successful creative or designer or whatever? And does it really do anything? And my honest opinion is no, it doesn't. I think what uni is great for, uni is great for exploring, finding out who you are, developing as an individual, and doing things. Maybe just you didn't want to go to work. It's normally the case, and you wanted to carry on education. A lot of people did that.
And you want to get laid.
Huh?
And you want to get laid. That's another you go to uni for.
All that as well. Yeah. So,
Luis, can I say something?
Yes.
Joseph, your explanation regarding the way you face clients' objections and the way you're saying you approach Melissa's work is highly technical and shows a design background. I don't think that we should go to college per se, but you have to study design theory. That's why notice that in all of your explanations, you gave technical reasons so that you overcome things. When you analyze something, you just don't think about the beauty of things. You have a strong background, and that makes you very good. When I say go to college, it's because people love web development, love doing creative stuff, but don't take the time, not all of them, of course, to learn design theory and technique.
Yeah, and I think college does set you up a little bit with that, but for the real world, it doesn't. It doesn't. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. Like it's more about exploring in uni and an experience, a life experience. As I said, it's more about molding you and shaping you. And
You're
then
just giving us a
and
design.
then when you get out into the real world and you actually start understanding, like you say, design theory and other topics, that's because you're seeing it in practice. You're actually seeing it happen. Rather, when you're at uni, you just do any random shit. You can do whatever you want. I did this, I did that. Maybe you can get into it a little bit deeper. I get that, but there's no real critical design thinking going on. There may be when you're initially doing it, and I'm not taking away some of the projects that people do at college are amazing. But I think it's when you actually put it into practice and you've got these extra dynamics that are coming to play, that's when you really start to learn about this. So my comment about that was that, while uni is a great experience and it definitely can give you some good tools and it can definitely give you, some good knowledge to get you off the ground and obviously going in and getting work experience. I mean, that would be my tenfold thing over anything. Like, if you can get work experience, that's going to beat your uni degree, because as we've all probably been aware, when you get out of uni, you then need to get a job, and every job says you need 1 to 2 years experience. And then you're like, okay, so how do I get that experience if I've just come out of uni? And then you're in this situation where you're just, again, you're like, what do I do? And then you have to do temp work, you have to work for nothing, and potentially in 3-4 years that you're at uni, you could have been doing that. You could have been cracking that already. You could have been in and out working. And you're already now a junior midweight. So that's why I question that. And I know for some types of fields, you couldn't be a scientist without having a degree or a master's, but creativity is slightly different. I believe creativity comes from the person, and it's not something that necessarily can be taught. It can be taught. There's aspects that can be taught, but it obviously always comes from the individual and how that individual interprets anything that they're applying their medium to. So,
do you think creativity without technique works to sell sites?
Creativity without technique,
yeah,
and logic.
Because I agree with you when you say.
My philosophy is there always has to be logic and reason with any creativity and anything that you're doing. My boss always used to say this to me: remove anything that is superfluous. Like, don't just put shit there for no reason that has no meaning and just doing it because it's cool, because someone else did it, but there's no real story, there's no real connection. And I always try with all of my design to have some sort of connection, relation to the way that it's laid out, the way that it's put together, and have that logic and reason behind what I'm doing rather than just doing it for the sake of doing it. And I think that's why it's so important to have a balance of both, have that technical UX design, critical thinking, but then have that balance of being able to break the box, push it up a few levels, and really take it to somewhere that is not where we've seen before. And that's not easy, and it takes time.
Yeah.
Benjamin,
I have a question.
Computer science, nice. Self-taught, great stuff. Yeah, I would probably fail miserably at that. I was terrible at science, and I'm not too good with technical computers either.
Somebody has a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, it's me. So Joseph, I sent on the chat like one of the on the topic of feedback, right? Like one of the biggest issues I have with feedback sometimes is that when you're working on, like, let's say a big company or a company with multiple people, and you have more than one person giving you feedback because they have like marketing manager, they have an internal designer, they have the CEO, multiple people are giving you feedback at the same time, and sometimes they clash.
Yeah, like contradicts itself.
Yes, exactly. And you kind of get lost, like, who should I listen to?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that kind of stuff?
How do I deal with that? Okay. So this is where you need to be a bit of, you need to kind of strong it a little bit, and you need to kind of dictate how this works. So my pushback for that always would be when I'm asking for a client and I know that there's multiple people involved, I say that this feedback, all parties must be involved and agree on this feedback, and it must be delivered consolidated and concisely in one hit. We can't work where there's multiple people coming in and giving different feedback. Now, I know that that's not always going to be the case, and it is very difficult. The next point of call would be, I want to deal with one person that is giving me this feedback. I can't open up a Figma board and have John, Dave, Tony, Sally all just pummeling different commenting. It needs to be done by one singular person. So all of that feedback comes through. And again, it's in agencies, that's slightly difficult. But if you're working as a contractor for an agency, you still have the right to dictate how you want to work. So you need to make sure that you're forthcoming with that. Don't just let them do it, because they will do it and they will just keep bombarding you. So you need to say, listen, I understand that there's multiple people overseeing this. There's multiple people that are going to be giving feedback. Who's the sole person that I will be receiving feedback from? And I want to make sure, and I want you guys to make sure that when you're giving that feedback, every single person has had the opportunity to input that and it's consolidated in one hit. Flip side, when you're a freelancer, then obviously you can dictate that with, again, a lot more control. And again, when you're setting your process, 2 rounds of feedback, and then if feedback starts getting sporadic, you can easily pull that in and say, this is not how we should be receiving feedback. And again, I know we always get kind of, a lot of people are probably kind of scared of the confrontation of saying these things, but as long as you say, my saying for this is fair but firm. Say it very fairly, explain it in a very fair way, and just be firm and make sure that you're clear in a way how you want things done, because everyone works differently. and everyone kind of expects different things. And if you just sit back, then they're going to trample all over you. So you kind of have to stand up a little bit, and be a bit more bullish. As I said, in a nice, fair, and firm way. You're not being a knob. You're just you're saying that you can't work in this way. It's not fair for them to expect that you should work this way, and that's how you can again change your language to push them nicely into the direction that you want. Hopefully that helped.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Are they things that you've tried to do?
What?
Are they things that you've tried to do?
Yeah, exactly. I have like use cases like that, and I did like similar stuff like you mentioned, especially like when there are multiple people clashing. I try to like find the right person to listen to, like who is the person that it's making the decision. So I try to figure out who is making the final call.
Who's the main decision maker?
Yeah, who's the decision maker? And I try to listen to that person and talk to that person, saying like, okay, so I have all these feedbacks, but what direction should I go? Because they are all asking for different things. They're not matched together. So since you are the decision taker, you tell me what I should do.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in these situations, and it is tricky to deal with. If there is clashing feedback, again, you can use this. Like I can't accept these points of feedback because they're contradicting themselves. You need to take this offline, and you need to come back to me with the clear feedback on that point. And again, that's just about your team. Yeah, that's again just about standing right where you believe and pushing back and not letting them do that. And you can say, look, you just say, I can't work with this feedback because this and this go against each other. Take it away. Come back to me when you're ready. And you're not always going to get a single source of truth, but again, trying to push for it. But you've seen to try to do them things, and I would just carry on with trying to do them things, and where you're not comfortable, as I said, just pushing back in the nicest possible way that you can.
Yeah.
I think another point to highlight is what we talked about last week. Like, there are some projects that you really have to be careful from the beginning and just, like you said, spoon feed them.
Yeah.
And have everything super detailed, because then it gets out of control and you get to that situation where you don't even know who's giving you feedback. It's just a total mess. But if you start very clean from the beginning with very clear instructions and a very clear process, it's easier to manage as the project evolves.
100%. You're the boss. Set the rules. Otherwise, some clients will set the rules for you. And when you're halfway down a project and you're thinking, this is a complete and utter shit show. I should have said this. I should have stepped in here. Diego is in a comment here, about feedback and having confidence. Yeah, confidence is gonna be a big factor that. But using some of them things, logic and reason, like if you've got logic and reason, you don't have to have like confidence, because you've got logic and reason there that can be that confidence to deliver that feedback. So while confidence is important, if you use them mechanics there, that's going to help. That's really going to help deliver that with that feedback and receiving it as well. Like what we were just talking about, setting them boundaries early, letting them know how you work. We was discussing something, and Melissa said a few things, and I was like, I don't like the sound of that. Clients were really starting to dictate some of the things, and that might be just nothing, but again, you need to weigh that up. You need to analyze that. You need to think about that, and then you need to start planning how you're going to make sure that they understand what happens here, how this happens, what happens there, and making sure that you're clear at every point so that you've got cover and track. You can track shit, remember where you said something. You said you signed this off. I said to you, once you sign this off, you can't start changing shit around in development. Now you want to change shit. As I said, this is out of scope. I'm going to have to charge you at an hourly rate. They already know the deal. They already agreed to it. And it's very hard for them to wiggle out of it. You also then have that ammunition to use that. So it's a case of that setting yourself up for success in that sense as well.
Mm-hmm. I have had projects where the feedback loop has just completely gone out of control. So something else that it's really, really useful is keeping track of the feedback that you're getting.
Yeah.
Like if you're someone that likes automation and stuff like that, it would be super smart to categorize the feedback on, is this something that the client wants to change because they just want to do it, or is this something that's really going to, or is this something more like a technical thing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Federico just put the comment in here right now, which is really good. Maybe giving the client a session on how feedback works. And again, that's just about setting how you want to receive feedback. Do you want it on an email? Do you want it in a Google Doc? Do you want it on Figma? Typically, agencies, they do what's called a feedback tracker. They sometimes do it in an Excel sheet, and they write, the feedback, what device it was on, or you've obviously got loads of different feedback. You could do it in Notion, whatever. But to Melissa's point, yeah, tracking your feedback is really good. Making sure that you remember what round you're in. I give the client 2 rounds, 3 rounds. Let them know like you're in the last round now. This is it. If you want to do more after this, then again we have to talk about how and what that is. But feedback trackers, yes, definitely very, very, very helpful, especially when things start to get a bit chaotic. And you're having to try and remember things. So that's what I said. Again, setting that expectation, using that, and then you've got that when you need it to be called upon. If a client's like, well, I didn't say that, let's have a little look. Yes, you did. You said it on X and Y date. Push. And then there's no pushback on that. So yeah, feedback tracker's good idea. Federico, yes, very nice idea with giving that an early feedback session. And yeah, as I said, starts with that initial thing. I like feedback given to me in this, that, however, and setting them rules. So Diego's asked me, where do I prefer feedback? For design, I do like Figma, but it is obviously hard to track that sometimes, and it can get a bit crazy in there, depending on the client and how trigger happy they are with feedback. And then you've got like threads in there and stuff like that. So that, or an Excel feedback tracker document, where you can then create tabs for round 1, 2, 3, and they're all in there, and it's easily contained. I think feedback for Figma is good when you're working with other designers. For clients, it's got to be a certain type of client. I think it needs to be one that has an understanding of design feedback, and also has you can kind of see that they're not just going to like start banging out loads of feedback, because obviously, as you know, when it all starts getting a bit much in Figma, too much comments in Figma can be a bit of a nightmare. So again, you need to weigh that up. I have 2 options. I always say, like, how do you want to receive feedback? Okay, either on Figma or on feedback tracker. The issue is, as I said, with Figma, you can't really track that. So you would have to maybe do like where you pull that feedback from Figma into a tracker, and then that's just another task. So again, you just need to push them into the space that you want. I've seen agencies give feedback FAQ and tips and tricks. Laura, what's this? I've seen some agencies give feedback FAQ and onboarding with tips and tricks. What does that mean? Lauren?
Yeah, I've seen some agencies give feedback FAQ at onboarding.
It was more on what constitutes feedback versus opinions. Okay, that's another good question. And that goes back to my point earlier, what I said about opinions. Design is super, super subjective. And as I said, everyone can have an opinion about design. And it will really come down to subjective changes like, oh, I don't like this color. Can you change this color? That's subjective because, like, actually, I like this color and it works with the design better. But you're suggesting something else because it's your preference. Where something that's more technical, like the alignment of this is not in place with that. Okay, that's more constructive feedback. That's more actionable. And it's very difficult when it comes onto subjective feedback. Like, there's not really much you can do with that, to be honest. It's just one of them. People are going to have what they think is good design, and it might not. It will probably totally go against what you think is good design. There's not really too many ways to manage subjective feedback. And again, going back to them principles of looking for logic, reason, and trying to push back in that way is always going to be the first port of call. Like, oh, we want to change this color. Well, your brand guideline says that this is the color, or the reason why we use this color is because it complements X, Y, and Z, and it is a like getting into primary and secondaries. So, for instance, looking at that might be using that logic. That might be a good way. Like, oh, we don't want to use that. Well, we want to use, for instance, like feedback might be, oh, we want to use this blue color in more places, which is actually it's the primary color for the buttons. There you go. You've got a simple way to just push back very easily with that. Well, the reason why we wouldn't use that blue is because the blue is used for a primary action. Yeah. And I get that kind of feedback as well. Like, oh, can we use this color here? And I'm like, well, we have a primary color, which is an action color, and you're now suggesting another primary color, which could also be confused with an action color. And again, it's a subjective change because it's a preference of what they think is right. But you're going back to that logic or trying to find some logic in there to push back with. Hopefully that helps, Federico. Like they give on advance, if they could give tips on how to give. Okay, yeah, that's a really nice idea actually. So like a little FAQ. Now I would again, I think this is a really nice idea about including that. That's almost a bit like the other one, like a little kind of run through of how you could give feedback. My only concern would be you need to be careful that people might take that the wrong way, and you're kind of saying you're an idiot, you don't know how to give feedback. But a lot of people that think they probably do know how to give feedback don't. So yeah, I think that's a nice idea. And I think driving up the right kind of good versus bad feedback is a really nice idea, and that could be part of the package that you send over when you're signing off a job, where you send over some documents. This is how we give feedback. This is where we do things. And again, setting that initial base for what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
Cool. I've been rambling on, haven't I?
Everybody loves it.
Since I went... Loom. Yes, Richard. Gotta love a video presentation. And actually, that's a really good thing to bring up. The projects that I've been working with Melissa, I did 2 nice presentations and pretty much dusted off the concept phase very quickly and efficiently with some very good articulated Loom presentations. And I would generally suggest doing that rather than getting on a call and going through it with a client. The reason why I would say that, and I've experienced this firsthand, going back to my days of having to present to boards of people, and you start to get into a flow, and you stop here and you stop there, and then they're pulling this up and they're pulling that up, and then you're like, fuck me, I haven't even got through the first page, and it's already been 30 minutes. And then you get people like, oh, I don't agree with that, and then you just, it really ruins the whole experience of presenting for me when you do face-to-face. And sometimes there's some techniques that I would use for that. I would say, well, I'm going to present, and as we go through, I'm going to pause at certain moments to give you guys opportunities to have discussions. Let them know, again, don't try and butt in while I'm doing it. I will get to the point where I can say everything I need to say, and then we have a moment, pause after certain points which you think are important to give that opportunity to speak. But again, setting that up front to say, when I'm going through this, I'm going to stop and pause at certain points to give you guys opportunity to speak. And that isn't a way to break that up, but it doesn't always work like that. So Loom, recording presentations, it gives you good opportunity to go through things, prepare what you're going to say, think about all the nice little logic and the details and the way that you can bring things to life, and you can start, executing that in your own time, and you can run over. I mean, I normally take like 2 or 3 goes before I actually nail a nice presentation. I kind of go through it the first time, get a little bit of a flow. These are the kind of key things that I'm going to talk about. Then I would do it again. Maybe, messed up on that bit. Maybe I rambled on a bit. I'll do it again. And one of my things is try not to like ramble on too much and just say shit for the sake of saying shit. We probably all do it, we kind of repeat. And where we're trying to set ourselves up for the next thing. And again, this is what my old boss taught me, is he was just like, boom, boom, boom. And he was just, everything was just on point with data, with reason, with logic, with facts. And it was just all like just one after the other. And it was just amazing to watch someone just articulate in such a way. And at the end of it, people just, they didn't, all the questions that they could have possibly thought of to ask were already answered, because the way that he presented. And that's what you ultimately want to try and do when you're presenting, is you really want to just push them and make them love what you've done, and give them all the reasons to why you've done what you've done. And it definitely helps. We move through that concept phase with very, very minimal feedback. And that's the ultimate game that you want. And that comes with telling the story, coming with the logic, and selling the dream. But, it doesn't...
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what would you do if you're doing a project where you're finishing, or you already have the design done?
Yeah.
You are developing all of the pages, but animation is not the final part of it. Animation is not done yet. Like, it's done, but it's not perfect. So the client wants to see, what's been going on with the project. So how would you approach that? Would you send them the unfinished pages? Like, how would that feedback?
Okay, so there's the way that I work is I focus on the homepage, and I build out that homepage pixel perfect with all of the animations and interactions, like looking perfect. Like, I would spend maybe 2-3 days just building out the homepage, just getting everything right, getting all the system built, getting everything responsive. So I've already started to create this system that's ready to when I start building out these pages. Because as I start getting through the pages, things start getting easier and easier, because I've already done all that tightening. When you go through a project and then at the end you're like, oh fucking hell, I've got to go through all of this. I've got to go back. I've got to tighten this up. I've got to do all of this stuff, and it just feels like effort. I think if you do that at that first point, you build that homepage out, you get it looking as good as it can go, and then you let them review that, because you've got everything on, you've got all the interactions, you can get them to again sign off. Yes, love it, it's all good, let's progress. Right, that is now out of the way. Now I can focus on building out the rest, and then I can start to continue to tighten as I'm going through. And as I said, as you start getting down into them last pages, you will have not a lot to do because you've already started to make make things mobile responsive, and it just becomes easier and easier as you get to that last point. That's how I work. Now, there's many ways of working. I'm not saying you have to work like that. If you like to just build out, then animate, that's fine. But again, I would still try and make sure that you get one page in front of the client as soon as possible that is as good as you can get it, so that you can get them on board, show them some progression. If they want to see an update and you're not ready, you need to clearly say, this is not finished and I do not want feedback for this. This is literally just for you to look at, to see where we are. Once I'm ready, then you can give me feedback. And again, you just need to be clear and let them know that is the deal.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Hopefully that helps.
It does. Anybody have more questions? We are at 1 hour and 12 minutes. I think that's a good spot to wrap it up. But if anybody has more questions and wants to unmute yourselves, you can do it. No?
No? Why now? I'm joking.
Okay, cool. So I think, do you want to say anything else?
Me? I could say a lot, but I'm going to have a break from talking for a minute.
I mean, we can keep going. I think there's people typing. I think it's just so important, the way you receive and give it, it's just it has to be so methodical, because a project can literally go to shit if you don't take care of that. It has happened to me. It has happened to many people.
Thanks, guys, for the comments. I know probably a lot of the stuff that I've said you may already kind of know, but it's probably good hearing it from someone like myself, just to cement it all in there and let you know that it happens to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And
Cool.
It's a journey.
It is. Okay, well, thank you so much. We're going to stop the YouTube stream. We're going to stop recording here, and we can just hang out now. Everybody's favorite part, the after party. Joseph, you don't have to stay. I know it's late, but if you do, we'll just stay here.
Yeah, I'm going to stay for a bit. I'm just going to go and grab a drink.
Cool. Okay. Bye, YouTube.
Bye, YouTube.